Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthews@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. Welcome to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. Matt welcomes back Eric Devan from Devan and Associates. Eric's an expert on using drones for investigations, and the guys chat about some use cases. Eric's also part of the Intellenet Conference Committee for 2023. This year, the event takes place in Orlando, Florida, from March 26th through March 28th. Want to know if you should add drone services to your investigator's toolbox? See what I did there? You're going to love this episode. Please welcome Eric Devan and your host, New York Private Investigator, Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today, I am happy to welcome back a former guest, but somebody we haven't talked to in a while. Eric Devan, I want to welcome you back to the program. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, great to have you. So you and I met a couple of years ago down in North Carolina, I think, or South Carolina. I'm sorry, South Carolina, at a conference from Myrtle Beach. You were one of the speakers there. You were talking about accident site photography, and it was a great presentation, man. And I think the last time we chatted, we were talking about doing witness statements out in the going out there and getting statements done. But what have you been doing since the last time I talked to you?
And I've been really, since that conference, I've been really busy with taking drone images and video. Mm-hmm. I have to say up front that it is very difficult to pass that FAA exam. And I do teach a prep course because I took a prep course, and it was a weekend-long prep course. And I thought that the prep course was difficult, but the presentation style and the questions and answers during the classroom sessions, I thought I was doing pretty good. And so I waited 2 days and I took the test, and I got a 58%.
Oh, wow. Out of 60, right?
Yeah, 58%. I mean, I just really bombed the test. So I had a client that I wanted to talk to about expanding my drone capability with investigation. So I scheduled to take the test near the client. And I figured out how much it was going to cost. I figured out the flight, the test, the place to stay, the rent a car, and it came out to $2,800. And I wrote $2,800 on the sticky. I put it on my monitor, and I said, if I don't pass the test, I just threw away $2,800.
Yeah.
Took the test and passed. Now I teach a test prep class because I teach it in a format to help people really get the information, help them retain it, help them understand how to pass multiple choice. It's a lot easier in the format that I teach the class, a lot easier to absorb the information. Right. And because of that, I've been working with law enforcement agencies to help them not only get their officers trained and to pass the test, but also trained to how to use drones effectively for all things law enforcement. Right. But that I also use it for criminal defense, to look over crime scenes. I was able to, on a criminal defense case, a guy was in jail for attempted murder. And I was able to show that the officer, it was impossible for him to see the see the event where he was standing that he claimed to have observed the attempted murder. It was just impossible. So, not to pat myself on the back, it's the drone. I couldn't do it without that technology. And I will be doing another presentation, and I kind of spruced it up since we met in Myrtle Beach.
Right.
You will enjoy this one in Orlando. I spruced this up and got a lot more content for everybody. Make it fun, you know.
Yeah. No, you're a great presenter, man. You definitely are interactive with people. That was one of the things that I appreciated. Like sometimes when you sit down in front of these people, you know, and you do these presentations and stuff, like it can, if it's not prepared properly, it can, no pun intended, thrown on. You know, that you just like, oh God, you know, like, when is this going to be over? But I've always approached, like, when I go to professional association, whether it be you know, Intellenet, you know, WAD, you know, NALI, things like that, like, these are the best of the best that you're talking to. Like, I'm not really teaching anybody how to do anything per se. Maybe I'm freshening some things up, giving my point of view. But I think the best thing to do is interaction, right? Because there's definitely somebody in the crowd that can talk about what you're talking about and give their own insight. And it's better for everybody. It makes it more interesting. People pay attention and you get a better presentation out of it. I always try and do it. And, you know, it helps you get through the material. Like when someone says, can you talk 2 hours on ethics? You know, it's like, like I've had that, you know, to me, it's like interaction, right? That's the best way to get things going. And you did that when we were down there. I know because I was raising my hand a lot and talking.
Right. Well, I got another one that's gonna without giving away the interaction, but it's going to age people. It's going to let you know how old people are without them actually saying their name.
Right.
And it's going to get people energized, and it's going to get them thinking differently about how they view things. Not everybody all the time. You know, if there are 3 people standing at an intersection and there's an accident that happened in front of them, and you separate all 3 people and you ask them what happened, you're going to get 3 versions of the exact same story.
100%. Yep.
Right. So the drone presentation, I'm going to show you a 4th version of the story with the drone. So it's going to be really cool. I'm looking forward to it.
That's awesome. So obviously people are probably saying, well, where's this presentation being done? We haven't talked about that. So there's a conference coming up for Intellenet in March. So tell me a little bit about that, because you're on the committee.
Right. So I'm on the board with Intellenet. It's an international network of private investigators and security folks. It really is the best of the best. It's not nationwide, it's worldwide. We have folks that come every year, would come from as far as Japan, China, Egypt, Italy, France, Canada.
UK, I know, and Canada, right? So Remy is from Canada. I know Michael LaCourt from England is coming. I mean, if you're into like networking with people around the world, this is definitely a great opportunity to meet people and break bread and learn with them.
And this is also something. It's for Intellenet members and non-members. I would encourage people who aren't a member to come out, not only for the camaraderie, the fellowship, and the possible connections, but it's a really good opportunity to learn some things about specialties that you don't know. There was a time when I had a case and I needed a specialist, and I saw somebody give a presentation. And because of that, I was able to reach out, talk to that person, get them to help me, and get them to help me on some things moving forward. It's just invaluable to have these contacts. And I don't want to sound cliche-ish, but I really do believe it's like family. So if I pick up the phone and I call somebody Intellenet, they don't have to know me personally, but just because I say I'm from Intellenet, they feel like I'm vetted, they feel like I'm professional, they feel like I'm somebody they could work with and assist without reservation.
Yeah. And that's real, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all running businesses, right? And we want our clients to be taken care of and to look good in front of them and all that. So having like a trusted network of people around the globe is a game changer. And I've had to use it from time to time. And I think you're right about that, where when somebody contacts an Intellenet member, like, the vetting process they had to go through to become a member because you went through it yourself.
Right.
And it's not like pay your money and, hey, welcome aboard. No, you got to be checked out, man. They do a little bit of due diligence. They actually call your references.
Right.
Right. And then you get the, group wide, hey, this person's applying. If anybody knows of any, reason or had some misdealings with this particular person, doesn't mean you can't get in, but you need to contact the board and let them know, and then have a discussion. And very rarely do you see something like that happen, but they ask anyways. They always throw it out.
Right. Well, it may happen more than because
okay.
The person didn't make it into the group, and right. You would have never known that they even applied.
Right. So how many people were talking smack about me? That Spaier guy's a hack.
Everybody likes you, dude. No. Really, man. Besides the fact that, not to toot your horn because I'm on your program, right? Yeah. But this Intellenet is all about. It's giving people an opportunity to network and to build their business or to build their brand. This is a true story.
Yeah.
The year before COVID, what are we talking about? 2019?
19, yeah. Yeah.
When I was doing my taxes, I was looking through my Excel spreadsheet, and I could look to see my money generated by client, right? And so I saw it, kept seeing like the client or the contact name -Intellenet. And when I added it up in 2019, 85%, maybe 80%, 80 to 85% of all the money I generated had an Intellenet connection on it.
Oh, wow. That's
true. Now, I did a lot of other work outside of Intellenet, but the big paying jobs. So, we want to talk, dollars and cents. I made more money from Intellenet than I did from jobs that took more time, but I made more income from Intellenet than anything else in 2019. And we're not talking about like 55%. We're talking like 80, 85%. That's significant.
Yeah, that is significant. And like, potentially, if you didn't have that relationship with the folks at Intellenet, that may have been work that you just turned away. Oh, I can't do this. I don't know how to do it. Right.
Or they just would have never reached out to me at all.
Right.
Right. So I had the opportunity.
Oh, right. So you have other people reaching into you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So one hand washes the other. And just having that, the ability to look like you have coverage everywhere from a marketing standpoint, marketing point of view. I mean, it's a game changer. Like, I find that in New York, like, sometimes the clients that I'm dealing with, they come back to me like, I've been doing this for a long time in New York,
right,
pushing 20 years, and clients come and go. Sometimes you have somebody for a long time and then they leave you for whatever reason, but sometimes they come back, and when they come back, you're like, okay, well, why'd you leave? Oh, well, I had so-and-so come in and they were cheaper than you. They told me they could, do it for cheaper, and I just wanted to get done. I said, okay, well, obviously you're back, so they didn't work out. They couldn't do the job. So it's like, you don't have those connections they didn't have the connections that I had. Like, they weren't able to basically get the job done. So it's almost like you have that prestige. You have the ability to charge more at what you do because you become an expert at it. So, like, I'm never afraid when a client leaves, because I know, like, either it wasn't meant to be,
or they're going to come
or they'll be back. And I'm telling you, Eric, it happens all the time. It's just like, hey, we tried something different and it didn't work out. Somebody, they did the old bait and switch, and they started them at a low rate. And then when they had all these surcharges, it ended up being like equal or even more than what I was charging, and they're like, but you and your team, like, you guys do it properly. And this guy, they're charging me the same thing and they're messing everything up, so
Right.
It's crazy like that. But what Intellenet and WAD and NALI and CISS, like, these are all associations I'm a part of, because it really does add to your network, and each one of those associations has an important function, and it's important to consider, if you can, memberships to all of them. I know I'm members of all of them, but it really does make a difference. And the networking alone, the relationships are great. I mean, I've gone to other association events and basically networked with people that were Intellenet members, and they become like very good friends of mine, even though it wasn't actually an Intellenet event. But like, I'll give you an example. I was in WAD. I was hanging out with Remy and Kristen the whole time. And like, we're buddies now. Like, I'm going up to Montreal to go hang out with him when the weather gets better. So,
right.
I'm looking forward to that. So you build friends.
Hey, let me. I might tag along on that trip to Montreal. You let me know.
I'll let you know. Yeah, I'm excited. Those folks are great. Both of them. I mean, just really, really great people. And so Intellenet also 40-year anniversary. So
Yes.
there's something going on 4440. I know Remy's putting out some silly videos, but tell me a little bit about that, what that is.
Okay, so we want to make this conference the best conference, because 40 years is a milestone. It's a big deal.
Definitely.
And we plan on having a big attendance. And one thing that Intellenet does every year, if you look at conferences and conference costs, some places you choose because the venues, you can get a good price on the venue, or you get a good deal on the food or the entertainment. But we always try to keep the cost down.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to have more things because it's the 40th. And we were scratching our head in the board meeting and said, what can we do? And I said 40 for 40. And Remy, well, what do you mean 40 for 40? I said, let's ask everybody to give $40 for 40 years of Intellenet. That's $1 a year. Remy said, oh man, that's a great idea. I said, Remy, let's not make this Eric idea. Let's just make an Intellenet idea. Right. He says, oh, we got to find a way to remote this. He says, I love it. 40 for 40. So Remy made some videos, and I'm gonna make a video and gonna put it out, kind of like a.
You heard it here first, people.
Yeah, like a model to Remy, because on the video Remy made, he said, he didn't let me know first, which is fine. He said, if anybody sends in their $40 in the next 10 minutes, you get a challenge. And that means you can ask Eric Devan to do anything at the conference. Exactly. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm watching the video for the first time. And I started scratching my head thinking, what won't I do? Like, if somebody, like, okay, there's a lot I will do, but my video is going to be the things I won't do. Like, I won't dress like a woman. I'm a horrible looker.
Okay, thanks.
I won't walk on hot coals. I won't do a dump tank. So that
no streaking in Disney World.
Disney. You might get a streak at Disney World. but most of the other stuff, because I can imagine if somebody said to me, hey, you could dare Matt to do something in Orlando. What are you going to dare him to do? I would think of all kinds of, crazy stuff for you to do. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to put some limits on. Like, okay, you did your 40 for 40. That's great, but I'm gonna have to put some limits on the things I'm willing to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. That's you got to set boundaries, man.
Right.
Nobody's getting arrested.
Yeah.
So isn't Intellenet's going to spend all the money they make on your bail?
But I think that's another thing that's going to make this conference really, really fun. It's just going to make the conference fun because we always have an interactive night. One night we had a murder mystery party in Charlotte, and everybody dressed up like 1950 gangsters, and Don Hubbard had the black suit on with the black shirt, the white tie, and I was like, God, what did you have that in your closet? Like, where did you get that outfit? And so when everybody dressed up and everybody came in, I didn't even know what the script was. I didn't even know who was involved. But when I saw Michelle Stewart, I was like, I don't know what this is about, but she did it. Yeah. And sure enough, I mean, I was just being goofy. But as we went through the program, it worked out that Michelle was the killer, So it was a lot of fun. But I mean, I stood up and said, I don't know anything. You don't have to say any script. If Michelle's in it, she did it.
She did it exactly. It's your Spidey sense.
And she really did. So it's just cool. I know I'm name dropping and talking about people, but that's because, I went to my first conference in 1996, and true story, in 96, this was in Orcas Island off the coast of Seattle. And I was sitting beside Harriet Gold. And now I didn't remember this, but she came with her 2-year-old daughter, and her daughter would cry, and I would hold her daughter and I would shake her and sing to her and stuff like that. She would stop crying. And maybe 2 years or 3 years ago, I met her daughter for the second time since 1996. And she said, this guy I was telling you about that would, keep you from crying and singing. And I'm like, I didn't remember, but, nice to meet you. But, from 96 to now, I mean, she's not a baby anymore. And
not a baby at all.
It's just cool. Lots of cool stories like that. And I've been doing tons of work with Harriet since then, and with a lot of the folks. So
Harry's great. She's
awesome.
I got stuck in Atlanta last year, and she put me up for the night with her husband. It was cool. Yeah, Harry's good people.
See, that's what Intellenet's about. I was going to say, stuck in Atlanta is an oxymoron if you know.
Yeah,
Harry.
no kidding. Yeah, no kidding. So yeah, and I told her, I was like, hey, I'm stuck. Like, let's have dinner. She's like, where are you staying? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to stay at some hotel by the airport. She goes, no, you can stay by my house. Like,
right.
And I was like, no. And then, Harriet was Harriet, where you can't say no to Harriet. And next thing you know,
right.
So it is what it is. Hey, so we're going to take a quick break right here, just for a couple commercials. And when we come back, I want to go back to drones.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, we got the Intellenet business out of the way. But I want to just end around and go back into that. And I know there's plenty of folks out there that, are like, ooh, I could do that, or I'm interested in that. I want to know more about that. So I want to cover a little more of that. So everybody sit tight, and we will be right back.
Awesome.
Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Are you an investigative professional with an international problem you can't solve? Conflict International has the knowledge and relationships to jump in for you. We compensate investigators for referring cases to our office. Contact us today for details. Conflict International uses insight, intelligence, investigation, risk management, and strategic solutions to solve problems troubling individuals and companies of all kinds, anywhere around the world. Whether you're planning to hire a person to a position of trust, carry out due diligence on a company, trace hidden assets, or require skilled boots on the ground, Conflict International investigators can seamlessly pursue a case across borders, offering a truly global solution. Find out about our extensive range of services at conflictinternational.com. Conflict International. Global reach, international knowledge. Looking for an insurance agent that puts you first? Every PI business is different. That's why OREP Insurance can shop multiple markets to ensure you get the best coverage to meet your unique business needs. OREP's model is business by the golden rule, and for over 20 years, they've built their business by putting their clients first. So come enjoy a fast online application and same-day certificates of insurance at orep.org. OREP has coverage for armed investigators, executive protection, and even has a separate policy for security firms. The application takes less than 5 minutes, so visit orep.org today. orep.org.
You guys have been hearing for a long time about how much I love Crosstracks, but now you're going to hear from somebody else. So we got George Gerges here. George is a member and a user of Crosstracks. George, tell me real quickly what you love about Crosstracks.
The simplicity of using it and the ability to customize everything that you could do with Crosstracks is awesome. It actually allowed me to take the way that I do my business and implement it into their system. And not only am I able to manage 10 or 15 cases, I'm able to manage 50 to 100 cases with the same effort.
Fantastic. So Crosstracks, the case management system, they are SOC 2 certified. Basically, that's an encryption, really an upgrade. They're the only ones out there that are doing it. So please support this great sponsor that supports our show. Check them out. The links are in the show notes. Crosstracks, if you're an investigator, you should be using them today. And welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're here with Private Investigator Eric Devan. Eric, welcome
That's
back to
it.
the program.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we got all that Intellenet business out of the way, and the real reason I wanted to have you on today is to talk about drones. And but before we do that, go sign up for that conference and go. I'll be there if you want to
Please.
come. Yeah, I got my sponsorship table. I'll be there.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a great event to be a part of. But so before we took the break, I said I wanted to get back into drones and talk about doing that. I think the idea of using drones as an investigator is great, but sometimes it's not practical. Like in New York, it's in the city, especially, you can't do it. There's just air regulations that don't allow it. But folks like you that are in the Carolinas, like there's the ability to do it. So like, what was your idea when you were first getting into this? How did you see it as a revenue stream for you, and what to use it for? And how would you recommend people get started on this stuff?
Well, it's another Intellenet story.
Mm-hmm.
When I first was introduced to drones, it was at a Vegas, maybe at a Intellenet conference in Vegas, maybe 8 years ago. And the fellow was I don't remember who it was, but he was talking about drones, and I was sitting beside a member, Chris from Pittsburgh. He's a good friend of mine, and I nudged him. I said, "Chris, isn't this cool?" I said, "Look at this presentation on drones, man. Isn't that cool?" And Chris leans back over to me. He says, "I got one." I'm like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, I got a drone." I said, "Chris, you can't have something that I don't have, right?"
Yeah, there you go.
He says, "You got to get you a drone." So I looked into it. I asked him what kind he had, and I got the model above his, right?
Oh.
So I called Chris and said, "Chris, I got a drone now, man." I said, I'm ready to do some things. So the first time I took it out, I flew my drone into my neighbor's tree, and it started to fall out of the tree, and I slid across the grass, and I caught it before it hit the ground. I cut up my fingers a little bit on the propellers, and I said, well, I need to learn how to really fly this thing. So I went to a baseball field that had a park behind it. So I was worry about hitting trees or hitting anything. And the drone flies 35 miles an hour. And 35 miles an hour in the air as opposed to on the ground looks a lot faster, right?
Right.
So you're covering a lot more space, a lot more ground, so to speak. So, I was practicing flying fast and flying slow, and how high to get the drone where I could still see a tag and all this kind of thing. So every day I just went out and I just practiced. Man, you don't have to worry about gas because you just plug it in, you charge it up. And you got to make sure you keep it charged. Just silly things that you learn, and then I made like a checklist of things to do. To keep it.
That's a good way to approach things. Having a checklist, making sure you don't forget to do anything. For sure.
Yeah. You just want to make sure. Like it's like working a surveillance and calling your client and say I lost him because I ran out of gas. Right? Like first of all, you would never call your client and tell them. Yes, but you don't want your drone battery to be at 20% and then you can't get the pictures or images. I mean, but I have backup batteries now. At first, I think the first drone I had, it came with one battery, maybe two, and then I had to get another one just for backup because you get about 25 to 33 minutes of flight time.
Right.
And I tell everybody. If you're using it for investigation, because you can't use it for surveillance, like you can't fly over somebody's head to use it, for surveillance. But if you get beyond 30 minutes, it's kind of like if you're in a gunfight. If you use all the bullets in your clip, the problem is not your aim. You got a bigger problem than having to reload, right?
Right.
Because if you couldn't stop something after firing 9 times, the problem is not your aim.
Exactly.
So
words.
Right. So if you need more than 30 minutes, then the problem is not it's not the drone, it's not the operator, but you have to be prepared. So you got to be prepared with extra batteries. You have to know your drone's capability.
Yeah, weather patterns. You gotta, I guess, make sure that it's not too windy or raining. Anything.
Well, so glad you said that because so from that first drone, which I love, it's like your first car, right? And I love it, and it doesn't behave the way my new drone does, and they both had a stabilizer, but if it's windy, the drone will constantly put itself back into the place where it's supposed to be. Right. So it may topple a little bit, but until you move it, like if you were hovering a helicopter, even if it's windy, it'll kind of teeter a little bit, but it'll go back to the place where it's supposed to. My new drone has anti-collision. So it will fly to something and it will stop. And if you try to force it to go forward, it will go up, go above that thing and keep going. And it has anti-collision going forward. It has anti-collision going backwards. It has anti-collision going down. So no matter how fast you try to land it, once it gets about 6 feet from the ground, it's just going to slow down, and then it's going to stop at about 3 feet. And no matter how fast you try to land it, it's just going to gently land to the ground.
Wow. No more cut fingers. That's great.
Yeah, no more cut fingers. But it doesn't have any collision on the side.
Okay.
It can fly side to side, but there's no anti-collision. So one of the things you could do as an out of habit is if you have to go to the left, turn the drone and face it left and then fly forward. I mean, you can fly sideways, but you don't have any collision sideways. But again, that's something that you learn from, with it. And
what's crazy is my kids actually, they take classes to full flying drones like every Saturday morning. And we have a drone. Like when I first getting into this, right, I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to use it for work. I'm going to buy a birthday present for my son, who I think was 7 at the time,
Right.
or 6. So I bought him, I bought this thing, and we used it and all that, and it was an older version. It really wasn't great, and like we used it, and then it just, the battery stopped charging, and then just never replaced it. Right. So then like he starts taking these classes, and he's using their drones and all that, and he's getting really good at this stuff. And not only do they do drones, like they do drone racing too, where they wear the VR goggles, and they're like doing their whole thing. And he's like, kid's an expert, right? He's 11, right? And this past year, or I think it was last year, I went and I bought him a really good one, and he loves it. He's really good at it. And we had a situation in my house where it was a Saturday. We're hanging out. I think I was playing Battleship with one of the kids, and all of a sudden I hear this like scratching noise. What is that? It's weird. My wife's like, "Do you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah, it's weird." And then all of a sudden, this bird comes down into our wood burning stove. Thankfully, the stove was not on. Right. I got this bird in my house. I'm like, how the heck did this happen? Right. So I opened the door trying to get the bird to fly out, and it was a whole thing. Finally, I got the stupid thing out of my house, right? But I was like, okay, I want to see what happened. How did this bird get in? And I go to my son. I'm like, hey, go get your drone and fly it up, and let's see what's going on the roof. And he flew it up, and we took a look, and it, sure enough, part of the chimney, the grate and all that had shifted, and the bird was able to find their way in. So it was really cool. We were able to find the solution to the issue, and the bird did not die. It got away, which was good.
Hey, I got something else for your son. You could tell him that this is Uncle Eric's idea to try. There is a drone soccer league. So drones are in these spheres, and they're in a netted cage. I got asked to be like a trainer or a coach. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know enough about it. I mean, I know about drones. So the drone is in something that looks like a ball, and it's in this netted cage or field. And there's a hole on one side and a hole on the other side. And the idea is to get all your drones in the hole on the other teams, and they do the same thing. Okay. And what you do is you got to block their sphere. You got to hit their ball with the drone inside and knock them out the way. So you got to be some strategy about it. Like if you try to go attack and get all of your drones in, they may get theirs in first. So somebody has to play defense and knock the balls away, but still at the same time get everybody, in on the other side. So there's actually a drone soccer league. So
awesome. Where's Massey? I'm sure he's like amazing at that game too.
Right. Like play defense and offense at the same time with a drone. Everybody sit. I was watching the balls inside the netted area. I was looking at the video, and then I saw the kids outside with the goggles on and the controllers, and I was like, they look really intense. They had uniforms, for their different teams. I said, wow, they look really intense. But I mean, I think it's fun, and any time you can get kids interested in drones at this age, I think it's cool, because there's a lot of jobs and outside of investigation, of course, but there's just a lot of ways to monetize flying. It's not for everybody, but it's a lot of ways to monetize it.
Yeah, all you and I had was kickball and trip fights running around. Like that's it, right? Right. These kids have all these goggles and cool technology now.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see these kids, like they're really into it. They know their stuff, and they can problem solve it and all that. I want to go back to something you had mentioned earlier, and I think which is a good point. Using drones as surveillance. Obviously, that's not a permissible purpose for doing that, and we want to be very clear about that. And you want to make sure you understand the rules and the laws of each state. Like I had mentioned, New York is a no-go in the city, anyways. Just due to the high skyscrapers, the air rights, the air traffic for airplanes and things like that. It's just you're not allowed to do it, no matter what FAA license you have. You can't do it.
Right.
So every state is different. So talk a little bit about that. Making sure people understand what they can do and can't do.
Yeah. So it's very clear in the FAA training and guidelines what the regulations are. And so the short version is you have to share space. You have to share airspace with airplanes. And there are people on or airplanes, even if it's just, one person, and you don't want to risk somebody's life because you're flying a drone. So there's rules about height and how high you can fly a drone. There's rules about flying within 3 miles of airplane airspace, and it's regulated by the FAA. So when you go and you buy your drone and you register your drone, you register with the FAA. Pretty much when you take off, they know that you took off.
Yeah, you register your serial number and everything. Yep.
Yeah, they'll know if you're in, certain airspace. And so, my drone, if I'm in airspace and I don't know it, I could be 3 miles within the airport, and my drone won't launch. One time I literally was in front of my house, just I wanted to take some pictures of my roof, and I wanted to take off my drone when take off, and I was like, I'm not near an airport. I don't know what the problem is. And then I looked down on my screen and it said that airplane approaching. I'm like, airplane approaching? What are you talking about? I'm not by airport. I'm not by. And just as I said that, I looked up an airplane and went past my house. And it was flying low. It wasn't that it was flying low or anything like that. It flew by. And then a second later, boop, boop, boop. It was okay to fly. So there are some restrictions, but when you study for the FAA exam, really you're being forced to learn the rules to fly. It's not just to pass the test and it's true multiple choice rather. That's not it. It's we want you to learn the rules. And another way I think about it is if you're riding a bike in the street, if the light is red, you can't just blow through a red light at the basic intersection.
Tell those people in New York for crying out loud.
Right. Well, supposedly you're supposed to follow the same
allegedly.
Right. Yeah, allegedly. You're supposed to follow the same rules as motor vehicles because you are sharing the street, right? So whether you're in a motorcycle, a scooter, or whatever you're in, you have to, because everybody's expecting, except some big cities, they're kind of expecting when you get to that intersection and the light is red that you aren't going to go through the intersection for the safety of you and the safety of other people. And the same thing with drones. So there's a lot of things that deal with the regulations, or the regulations deal with a lot of things to make it safe for everybody. And if everybody follows the rules, we shouldn't have, accidents or crashing into trees and some of those other things.
Right. That's good to know. So, okay. So what can the investigator use a drone for? What typically, would you say is the big, easy to do job that we're not thinking about that you can make a living on?
I'm glad you asked. So, and it depends on the category. So let's talk about surveillance. Now, we're not talking about using it for surveillance, but let's say like you're in your target lives at the end of a cul-de-sac, and there's cameras at the end of the block. I know in my subdivision, there are cameras here so anybody comes on my circle, they're going to get picked up coming in and going out.
Right.
Well, the cameras are on street poles, right? Well, obviously the drone is flying above that. So if you want to see if my car is in the driveway, if I'm home, if you want to get my tag, if you want to know if I have a dog, if you want to know if the neighbors have a dog, if the dog is going to bark, If you want to know if the lights are on first thing in the morning, if the person's coming out,
So
you
like
could just
pre-surveillance work, essentially. Right.
exactly.
Okay.
So I had a case for somebody with Intellenet that this person lived in this really nice subdivision, and it was a gated community. So I went to the community over, and I flew my drone back the airspace above the house, and I said it was a young lady who potentially was visiting with her mother, and they needed to serve her some papers. And I was able to say, yes, she's there because, I could see her vehicle, and I was able to show her vehicle outside the garage.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to have somebody sitting there, waiting to determine because you would never be able to get to the house or the back of the house. So what do? How do you know if the person is actually there? I mean, the client says they believe that she's there.
Right.
But I was able to, with the drone, show that she was there.
Yeah.
Get her served.
All right. So basically, using it as a tool to gather information for the actual job that you're going to do. My first thoughts also are reconstruction, accident reconstruction. Taking an aerial view of the accident site to see all the factors. You had mentioned criminal cases earlier where somebody had an obstructed view, and you could see that by having the layout. Yeah, you could do Google Images to an extent, that overhead, but it's not the same. And thinking that you want a jury to look at this, having the drone footage is more impactful than just having image from wherever or whenever.
So if you use Google Image, it's going to give you an image that it's going to give you that one image, right?
And you don't know how old that image is. Could be from 5 years, 6 years prior, and things can change.
The one case that I was talking about, it was a gas station, and the gas station actually changed hands. It went from a El Cheapo to a CK Mart. So it was a different gas station. So
they have a gas station called El Cheapo where you live?
Yes, and the gas is El Cheapo there.
It's fantastic. Who's that marketing genius?
So at El Cheapo, they're open all night, and they have a lot of foot traffic, right? So if you take a satellite image, that satellite image could be from, gosh, I can't imagine how high up it is. But, I'm taking images from 200 feet off the ground as opposed to 2,000 feet, so I can focus in on some things. And then I could focus in on the area where the defendant was standing. I could take a picture of that. I could take a picture where the officer was standing, where witness was standing. I could take a general photo where you might with your camera, try to take a panoramic photo. Well, it's not panoramic from the air. It's just, it's just a photo where you can see the entire area. So,
even progression shots, right? Intersection progression. You can do progression of both vehicles. You can, set it up for your drone to be stationary and record light sequences. You can definitely package things together and make it work for sure. And it looks professional, looks neat. You're gonna keep that juror's attention. It's a great revenue stream if you can do it, for sure.
Yeah, and it takes some practice, but it's not arduous. When you talked about you and your son having a drone, it really is fun. I mean, you take a drone out and flying. I mean, it's not paper airplanes anymore. It's a little bit more technical to it, which actually makes it more fun. But you could take video, and you could take photos, and it has a couple other cool features.
So one of the features that my son's drone has is that you can set it to follow you, right? So it goes up there and it sees who you are, reads them or whatever, and as you start walking, this thing's like just following you through.
Right. So it should have. Well, mine has 3. Your son probably has the same thing. It should have 3 follow me features. So on follow me, I can have it follow to the right of you. So as you walk, it's going to follow to the right. And if you stop, the drone will stop.
Yeah.
And then it has a follow me feature where it'll follow behind somebody. Same thing as they walk, it will stop. But the coolest one is follow me orbit. So as you walk, it will orbit around you. And you're moving forward, but it's moving forward.
We're making music videos now. Fantastic.
And so could you imagine if you weren't sure if somebody had a gun? And if it's a active shooter case and somebody comes running out of a mall and the drone is following around them, so you can see their face, you can see their hands, you can see what's behind them, and you say, okay, that person is safe. Let's bring them over to law enforcement, and then you can go track some other people. So, you can see all around the person and all around their area, and if they stop. With the orbit, if they stop, it will continue to orbit around them. And as they move, it will move with them in orbit. So yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. I mean, even on the security side, that's a whole nother episode of what people use drones for.
Right.
Monitoring and guarding potential locations, as threat assessments and things like that, which is pretty neat. Yeah. So Eric, we're gonna wind down here. This was great. Thank you so much for coming on. And,
man, having me.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure chatting with you, man. I'm gonna see you, I guess in a couple of weeks, 6 or 7 weeks, I guess.
We're going to be down in Orlando. If you have a challenge, check out the video. There's just
exactly.
I won't eat raw fish.
Oh. No sushi.
I can't eat sushi.
Into it.
And I can't eat anything that's still moving. So if it's like some kind of worms or some other kind of insects, but I got a feeling that I'm going to be really busy besides the presentation.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. He said something about getting coffee or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, he said he was going to dress like a waiter and get coffee. My suggestion was that me, Remy, and Jeff do Rat Pack songs. That he could be Dean Martin and I'll be Sammy Davis.
Nice.
It could be Frank Sinatra. And we'll just do Rat Pack songs. We'll do Rat Pack karaoke. He says, no, we got to do other fun stuff.
No, I think you got to, it's Florida, it's Disney. You got to do something Disney related. So.
Yeah, I can't, now that you mention it, I can't, you know what? Somebody's going to make me put on like a goofy outfit.
You're going to have to wear the Mickey Mouse ears for the whole conference or something. Someone's going to do something silly like that.
Man. Well, you know what? If it could get more people to come to Intellenet, join Intellenet, and contribute to the 40 for 40, is worth it. I'll do it.
Definitely. So it's March 27th through the 30th down in Orlando. You can we'll have the link in the show notes to Intellenet and how you can register. You do not have to be an Intellenet member to attend. If you're on the fence whether or not you want to join, I definitely encourage you to come and check it out. I will tell you, however, there is a membership requirement for you being in business or having work experience for a certain amount of years. I believe it's 10 years, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Intellenet does to make sure that the people you're referring you're working with know what they're doing. But you're still welcome to come and hang out if you don't have that experience and learn from all the folks that do. Again, the networking alone, the dinners, the hangouts. We had some epic hangouts in Vegas last year. I mean, really. Really good times. I mean, I'm talking about going to speakeasies to see some live music and walking the streets, cigar bars, you name it, whatever, just hanging out. And we actually bumped into the chief of police at Louisville, who was at some FBI conference, and he was hanging with us the whole time. And actually, I became friendly with the guy, and we've hung out and talked a few times, which is pretty neat.
Hey, that same conference, funny story. Now for here, but when we get to Orlando, remind me to tell you about how I got in a fight with Tommy Hearns in Las Vegas at the conference.
Okay, so folks, there's the teaser right there. If you want to know that story, you need to come to that conference.
True story.
And Eric will get on mic in front of everybody and tell the story. That's my 40 for 40.
Right. That's right.
So, all right, man. If folks do want to get a hold of you, if they have any questions about the drones and all that, how would somebody find you?
Yeah. Eric at Devan Associates. Actually, try Eric at dronepilotcarolina.com. That's Eric at dronepilotcarolina.com. Super easy.
And do not send it to Ask Eileen. Apparently, some guy in South Korea owns that. That's what you know. So,
right.
Eric, thank you so much, man. It was great. And we'll catch everybody next week on the next episode. Take care.
All right. Thanks for having me, man. Have a great one.
Yep.
Thanks for checking out this episode. We hope you learned about drones and how to implement them. Please also consider going to the Intellenet conference. Don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com. You can also type in version 2.0 25% to save $50. We want to thank Crosstracks, Conflict International, PI Institute of Education, and OREP for sponsoring the show. So please support our great supporters. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible, and we'll be back next week with a brand new show. So make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.